Hello and welcome back to the Mum Show. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about raising risk takers. How do we make our children brave? So get yourselves comfortable, come and join us, and let's get this show started. Hello, we are back in the Mum Show kitchen. My name's Marina and I'm joined again by Pastor Claire Hooper and child therapist Emma Brown. Hello. And today we are going to be talking about helping our children take risks, making our children brave for this world. It's a big one. Do you know, I find this a funny conundrum for mothers because there's part of us that really wants them to be bold and take risks, and there's part of us that wants them to be safe.
The story of, I think I've told it before, the don't mum chorus. You're in the park and there's the don't do this, don't climb on that, don't go down the slide backwards, don't do the other. I'm like, climb it higher.
Dads are just so opposite though, aren't they? Like
sometimes.
Well, okay, my husband is really adventurous with the kids, and we have an ongoing debate where I say that is really dangerous and gone too far, and we absolutely shouldn't let them kind of go down that mountain at full speed. And my husband will say that their inner desire to live means that they're going to focus, and they're not stupid. They're going to make sure that they're staying on track, and that this is absolutely the thing for them to do. So at the end, like, I just stay at home and intercede. I'm like, I'm just going to stay here on my knees.
Send me any pictures.
Their survival is because of mine with the Lord, you know. I'm like, 'cause it just freaks me out. In fact, I feel like people don't believe my turmoil enough. I feel like you don't understand the risks my children take, and I need sympathy on this, ladies. So I've made a video. Are you ready? This is a video, just a normal day in my children's life. Take a look at this.
Let's do it.
And that is basically just constant pushing, shoving. In fact, Dominic.
You were shoving with Dominic, or was it Ruben?
No, it was Dominic. Anything to get the adrenaline going. He once built, I mean, this did make me laugh, he built a snowball so big that when he threw it, she flew. Like, she just flew across the garden and laid like that, or sprawled out on the floor covered in snow. But that does kind of take my nerves to a new level a little bit. I'm kind of like, this is just... But I think part of that is to do with my own physical inabilities.
Do you want some brain science for that, though?
Yeah, no, knock me out.
Because actually, I think Dominic's got it right.
Go on.
Well, you know, we've talked on this show about teens, haven't we, and how that natural kind of risk-taking developmental stage that they go through with the novelty seeking and the kind of risk-taking behaviours. Well, there is research to say that if younger children are taught to be risky, to be a bit risky, and to take risks, they're less likely to take more harmful riscs during those teenage years.
Because they learn the cause and effect, don't they? They learn what their risk does, what their bodies are capable of, what other people around them are capable of.
Do you think that's just it, or do you think there's something more to it? Do you think it's that they're learning how they are? Because, like, your spatial awareness has nothing to do with taking risks of alcohol poisoning, does it? Like, do you think there's any connection there at all?
Well, I don't know, but I just think that if children can learn and know their own bodies and know their own boundaries and know their own limits at an earlier age, they're much more likely to kind of be, you know, we've talked about that hyper-rational thinking during the teenage years.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be less intense if children have already learnt kind of that they know the consequences of their actions and they know how far to take things and they know their own bodies. So I think
that sense of danger, it does put you on the edge a little bit, doesn't it? It's like if you take them to a soft play gym it's not really risky play, so they can all do somersaults and all the rest of it. But if you take them to the woods and it's like, I have to land in the right place, then you do see a difference in the way they play, don't you? And kind of the way they develop.
We've got a trampoline, and actually we had a net for a couple of years, and I took it off because I found them more risks. I found them taking unnecessary risks with the net than when it was off. They almost adjusted to the fact that there wasn't the safety net around them. They didn't wrestle with each other. They didn't try and do crazy somersaults. They didn't. Well, I mean, we did push it up to the garden shed and jump off the garden shed a few times, but apart from that, but that was parentally instigated. The wheelie bins lined up, climbing up onto the garden shed, jumping off onto the trampoline and off again in like a little round.
That is so
But we
good.
just taught them how to, what does Buzz Lightyear say? Fall with style.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's not flying, you're falling with style.
Okay, good. But what advice would you give though to a mum like myself, who actually I don't mind taking big risks when it's not physically harming?
But how have you learned to tolerate that though, Marina? Because that is, you know, I know your husband. I know that, you know, that's his life. Well, that's his life, isn't it? And given half the chance, he'd be doing that kind of stuff every day.
Yeah.
How have you, as a mum, learned to kind of tolerate your anxiety of wanting to kind of keep them at home,
look after them, and to make sure that they don't die?
Yes.
I think partly I think I have to accept the fact that he's their dad. And that as much as I'm their mum, he is their dad. And I just have to accept that fact. And I think it's really important that as parents, we don't interfere in our spouse's relationship with their children. And we can think about that sometimes when families are separated and see them as two separate entities. But I think within marriage, they have to have their own dynamic. They have to have their own relationship. And I can't come in and say, you guys can't interact with each other like that. So I'm very conscious that actually, you know, he's playful, I married him playful, I married him taking risks.
Yeah.
And I just have to kind of accept that. And the other thing I think is that I really, truly pray.
Yeah. Do you think it's made you more of a risk taker over the years?
I think that I've always been a risk taker in my approach to life.
Yes.
So I've always been quite bold in, we'll just give it a go.
Yeah.
You know, we'll just see what happens.
True.
And the situations I look back on and I just go, oh my, I can't believe I did that. But I've always felt quite brave about putting myself out there and just trying something. But I don't have a lot of physical confidence. Right. I don't. In fact, I remember. Yeah, I won't tell that story.
We're curious now.
Yeah, I know. There's just many times that I get injured, and it is a bit of a joke now. That it's like, I mean, literally last week I got hit by a very fast remote control car, and the doctor's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing in life? So I don't feel physically as in control of myself.
Right, that's interesting.
Which I think that actually being in that environment, I will often be told, like, Dominic will speak to me and he will say to me, you totally know what you're doing. You're okay to do this. You are that, you know, go and get on with it. Don't worry, you're going to be fine. You walk all the time without falling over. But that's not even true.
You walk all the time without falling over.
That's not even true. I bang into, like, objects that have been stood there for years and it's like I don't see them. So it's just one of those things that I think I will always have to navigate because they're always going to be like it.
Yeah. But you have joined them. You join in, don't you?
Oh, yeah, and then I get hurt. Like, I've done the mountain biking, I've done all of that. I don't sit back and watch, but sometimes now they're beyond my ability.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know, everyone's just waiting for mummy. So I'm like, you guys just need to go off. And I'm going to read a book, which, frankly, I don't get a lot of time on my own.
Yeah.
I wonder what God thinks about it all, because I actually, you know, there's so much about God that you think is not about risks. It's about the order and the structure at which he plays things out. But then there are some incredibly, vastly amazing things he just did. Absolutely. And you're like, wow, that is like on the edge of like what I would even dream up or think about. And even when Jesus goes and calls his disciples, he says this, doesn't it? Jesus called them out and said, come follow me and I will transform you into men who catch people for God. Immediately they dropped their nets and left everything behind to follow Jesus. I don't know, like if I was asked that question by some guy that walked past me, the man of God that walked past me, he's not some guy, the man of God that walked past me, I'm like, would I have it in me just to go, boom, drop in my nets? and I am going for it.
You would.
But he has that of those people, and I think there's something about that you have to foster. Even we've talked about anxiety in one of the episodes, and what are the factors that stop us like reaching for those things. But I just wonder whether God wants to stir up a little bit of that risky inside of us, just so that we begin to dream and think and do things that we never even dreamed. That Jesus said, you know, he wants to see us do greater miracles than he did, and that doesn't come without taking a few risks, without coming out of our comfort zone, the careful like boxes that we put ourselves, the lives that we construct, and just stepping out from what that is. Yeah. You must see that in your therapy, where people hold themselves back from scary places or taking those risks in relationships.
But often, you know, what we've said before, often those the kind of narratives and the labels and the beliefs that people hold about themselves go way back, way back to
early childhood.
Absolutely, and what they think about themselves, how they, you know, whether they believe that they're capable or valuable or even worthwhile to kind of be seen or to be acknowledged. So it you know, going back to our usual thing of, you know, us as parents, it's our job, isn't it?
It's always about us, isn't it?
It is.
But it is that, isn't it? It's reevaluating how you see yourself. Yeah. Because I've had to reevaluate when it comes to physical risks. Now, I am capable, I am strong, I am able, I can balance, I can do those things. And actually, when we start to because it happens all the time, as we carry baggage, don't we? And we carry ideas about ourselves, and you know, we talk so often about mirroring and how much our children pick up on that. I think there's like a responsibility. If we're going to raise risk takers, then we need to first of all look inwards and say, what stops me? You know, if I thought of the one thing I love to do that I'm not doing, what's stopping me? Yeah, and kind of look at that.
Do you know what I think the biggest risk is, and this is certainly my experience, and going back to what you're saying about the therapy, doing therapy with people, the biggest risk is to show up and be yourself, I think. Is to allow people to really see you. And I think, how do we, because we want our children to believe that they're worthwhile, don't we? We want them to believe that they can show up and be seen and just be themselves. But I think that's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge for us. It's taken me years and years, and I'm still not there. It's still a journey for me. But I think, you know, throughout my journey of all the therapy that I've been in myself and becoming a therapist, I think in my role as a parent, in my role as a wife, and as a therapist, I think the more authentically me I can be, the kind of more deeper and more fulfilling the relationships that I have with my children and my husband and my clients are as well.
Which is why being fully known and fully loved by Jesus makes you brave and empowers you to do things and live the life that brings on greater things than these and that brings on incredible opportunities and makes you feel great, because you think, if in all my vulnerability and in all my rubbishness you see me and love me, then I'm worth something and I can be brave.
And then it stops it being about the vehicle, whether I'm jumping off a trampoline or flying down a hill, or whether I'm being confident enough to be myself. The risk, it's not that risky then when you think about it, because actually God says that he would take care of those needs, and actually the core of who we are is enough. It's good enough.
Yeah. Let's hear from the kids. Let's hear what they've got to say. We'll come and have a look.
And action! I think one of the biggest risks I've taken was at a water park when there was this really massive slide, and at first I was really scared to go on it, but when I told myself you can do it, I managed to do it, and afterwards it just made me feel really happy and relieved and proud. Mine was also at the water park when there was this giant, enormous diving board into really deep water, and I'm really scared of heights and things like that. So I went on the diving board and I jumped down and I managed to do it, and when I came out I was really proud of myself and happy that I'd done that, and I did it again and again after that, because I just found it really I was really happy to do that. It told me that I never need to be scared because I can do it if I believe in myself.
So when you were on that diving board, what did you say to yourself, or what did you have to do to get yourself ready to actually jump off?
When I was on the diving board, I was really scared, but I told myself you can do it, and I was believing in myself, and I gave myself a pat on the back, and I got ready. And then there was some people, because I obviously looked like I was scared, and there were some people down on the side of the diving board, and they were all like clapping for me and saying you can do it, and then that made me feel like really happy, and so I did it.
That's awesome. So what do you think stops you from taking risks sometimes?
I think one thing that stops you from taking risks is fear, because many people are just too scared to do it.
Okay, so then what makes you feel brave in life?
When you have someone there supporting you and behind you every step of the way, and just like they're saying you can do it, and if you feel like you can't, then they'll always be there and cheering you on, like your own personal cheerleader.
Do you think it's important to take risks? And if you do, why?
I think it's important to take risks because some risks could change your life. And yeah, I think if you have a risk to take, you should always think first and then take it. I think it's also good to take risks because you'll be in one place, and then once you've taken the risk and you've done it and you've achieved it, you feel much better, and you can do more things than you could do before, and it's like being in another step, this next step up to being like ready to do more things that you've never done before.
Love those girls.
So helpful to hear it, isn't it?
I love the way they stir themselves up. They're like, I can do this, I can do it. And it's such a personal thing, isn't it? Like, I think it's interesting because as adults we think about what we've got to do, but it's actually what they've got to do. And they're talking to themselves. Although I did like the way Isabel said everyone was cheering her on. I can do this. She's got her cheer team underneath her. But I think I'd like to chat a little bit because I think it can be interesting how often kids, I think, naturally take risks. Because if they didn't, you wouldn't get up and walk. You would just stay laying down. You wouldn't stand up and try and walk across the room, fall down, get back up, walk across the room, fall down, get back up. You wouldn't do that if you didn't have a natural, innate desire to take a risk. And so I think actually we've got to look at what shrinks children down. And there's kind of two schools of thought in parenting often, and we don't often talk parenting styles, do we?
No.
It's very unlike us, but I think it'd be really interesting just to go there for a few minutes and talk about what can reduce children from taking risks. And one of those is kind of that idea of helicopter parenting, isn't it?
I just think that it's drummed into us to keep our children safe, isn't it? That's our prime objective is to try and really, really protect them. And there's a danger then of almost bubble wrapping our children and not allowing them to take risks. You know, if you kind of think, and it's how we respond as well when they do take a risk that's so important. If you can kind of imagine, a 4-year-old in a playground climbing up a climbing frame, and they get stuck at the top, and they're kind of caught looking out for you. There's two responses that we could have, isn't there? The one is, oh my goodness, you're going to fall! Wait there! Don't move! Running up.
Helicopter
parenting. This is the helicopter parenting.
We're just clarifying. This is helicopter parenting.
So you rush over, you run up, you grab your child. What is that child experiencing then? That child is experiencing, oh my goodness, I can't take risks. That was too scary. Mummy's scared, therefore I'm scared. I can't do this.
What is going to happen to me?
Absolutely.
What's going to happen to mum? Can I do that more?
Absolutely.
Freaking mum out. I don't want to freak mum out.
Whereas an alternative could be, you see your child looking out for you, and you go and approach gently, sweetheart, and helping, just gently reassuring them, and then just helping. You can do this, you've got this, wow, you've got so high all by yourself. And mummy's right here, and I can just help you, and you just gradually get them down, you give them a big cuddle, wow, what a brave girl you were. What a difference that child is going to experience in that moment.
Language is important there, isn't it? Because I've had to learn with my kids that rather than saying, be careful, slow down, I have to say, feather those brakes, tell them what they do need to do, or keep your balance, or are you checking the road? Things that they have to do rather than things that I want them to stop doing, because Kids' brains work that way, is that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've got a fantastic quote here from Brené Brown, who I think we've mentioned before. We love Brené.
We would love to meet Brené.
She's a researcher. Oh, that'll be fabulous. She's a researcher. She's done some incredible work on the power of vulnerability and kind of showing up and being seen. And she's written a bit about parenting as well. So let me just read you this quote. So if we are always following our children into the arena, hushing their critics, assuring their victory, they will never learn that they can dare greatly on their own.
Absolutely.
And that, I'm glad you both agree with that one. So it's not just the physical when they're little, rescuing them, not letting them fall, you know, kind of wrapping them up in cotton wool. It's as they get older, it's that idea of not allowing them to take risks in life. You know, not allowing them to kind of know what it feels like to have to deal with conflict, to have to deal with failure, to have to deal with disappointment.
I love that. God does that for us, doesn't he?
Totally.
He does that for us. I love that verse in Isaiah, you know, where it's like, do not be afraid, I'm with you. Do not tremble with fear, I'm your God. And he says he's holding us in his right hand. And it's not like this big, tight grip. It's like this, I'm your foundation. Dance. Do your thing, live your life, have your dreams. And I love that because God doesn't actually swarm in every time we face something, but he gives us the resilience and the resources we need, doesn't he?
Absolutely, and there's an exchange that happens that takes them from the care that you're giving to your children, that Father God's entrusted these children into your care. They were God's before they were ours, trusted them into our care, and we get to nurture them and coach them in those things to risk and dare greatly and to know and understand what their body, what their mind, what the world around them can do. And when they reach adulthood, full independent life and thinking, then what they haven't got to do is navigate now. What do I think about that? What do I feel about that? Am I scared about this? We've already prepared them. We get to be in those pivotal early stages, and God puts us in that position of, like, you know, I think it's such a privileged position that you have with however many children you've got around you, 2, 3 human beings. You get to help shape the ability for them to know what it is to take a risk in a positive risk.
Yeah,
absolutely.
When they lean into adulthood, with their workplace, with their relationships, with, you know, reaching for God for miracles, seeing God do incredible things. You get to shape that in the early days.
Absolutely. I think the keys for me is helping our children learn how to say what they need. So getting them, we want children. We don't want children to be completely people pleasers. We want them to be compassionate and have empathy, but we also want them to be able to ask for what they need. And I think we also want them to be able to talk about their feelings. And then the third thing, I think, what I really want for my children is to be able to have difficult conversations.
Yes, definitely.
And all of that is about taking risks.
It is
Hugely risky having those difficult comments. It's much easier to avoid it. But vulnerability, I just think is all about courage and taking risks.
Yeah, which is so much what we can do with our kids, isn't it? It's that place we can go to. I know we talk all the time about those conversations you don't look forward to with your kids, that and we talk about teens and when you go to that places and I love the way you say, don't be weird, Claire, I need to connect, but I need to not connect, and it's like that kind of crazy stage where we have to be vulnerable with our kids, but that actually sets such a powerful example, doesn't it, of where they can take things. So let's just say, because some children, I know children that are particularly risk adverse. What do you think we could do to interject and help those kids feel brave when perhaps that's not where they've been up until now?
My Grace is like that, actually. And she now has come out the other side. She's 11, but she loves now. But she wasn't very physically confident. She wasn't very physically able at a young age. My boys were very good physically. So she would even get onto chairs and be really nervous. And so we just helped her every opportunity she was on. I remember putting up Christmas decorations and she was on a stool and the stool was fine. And it was not very far off the ground, but she froze and she was, this is freaking me out. You've got to help me get down. You've got to do it. And me and Matt just went, no. We stood with her and we were like, you can do this. You've got this. We just literally stood, coached her. You've got it. I haven't. I'm stuck. I'm like, it's not even this high. I'm never getting down. I'm not going to eat again. She literally went there
Oh,
and, no, you'll be fine. You can sit down if you want to and get down. And she just, and then it was like a moment of, I can do this. So it was just helping her. That's a really dramatic version of what we did. But I think you kind of tackle some of these things with risk head on. Help them to assess what's going on around them. Give them the tools to actually deal with what they're going through. And just be careful that you don't treat them like they're an adult trapped in a child's body. You know, you might not be very physically able, but at this stage of life, when they're a child, their mobility, their ability is growing and moving and changing and growing all the time.
Do you know, that reminds me actually, because for my son, like, he can take loads of physical risks, but for him a risk would be socially or academically, being at the level that his peers are at, because he has so many challenges that he has to face. And one of the most amazing people in his life is my sister Carla, who is his auntie, obviously. And she manages him so well, and she gets him to do such incredible things. And you can see he gets braver when he's in her company. And one of the things that she does is she sets and she just sends him the message in so many ways: you are no different, and I expect no less. And it's incredible. And the things that she does, and I was saying it last night, she sent me loads of messages. She'd spent the day with him, photos of what he's doing, all things that I know would be kind of like a challenge for him. But actually, he can spend all day with her and come home feeling amazing. And I know he's overcome so many hurdles and so many boundaries, but she just, like, as far as she's concerned, she's like, I expect no less than you. I expect no less from you than anybody else, and we're going to do this, so let's crack on. It's an incredibly practical way.
So powerful.
But it's all about connection and relationship, though, that story, isn't it? The relationship that your son has with your sister is incredibly special, and he will want to be the best version of himself when he's with her, because he wants that connection with her.
Isn't that lovely?
And that's so the heart of God. I expect no less of you. I treat you all the same. What ability that you come with is the ability that God's given you.
So that in that sense, then, it's learning to pull out the best to make them brave and shine a light on it.
Absolutely.
Get role models involved, get them onto, get them in classes and things like that. That's going to just push them. Zone of proximal development, push them just beyond what they can do on their own, but they need some assistance to bridge that gap.
Definitely. Stir those dreams and ideas, and
it's so special, isn't it? You know the quote, it takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child. I think one of the things that makes my kids really brave and makes them prepared to take risks is when it's not all on me. And when they've got interaction with people across the community, different ages, different backgrounds, different outlooks, and then all of a sudden, you know, you've got all these people inputting, and they learn so much more, that actually when you come to that close-knit parenting, it can be overwhelming and make them think that they can't survive without you, can't it?
Another benefit of the local church.
Yes,
all the time that God tells us that it's his bride, and that's why, because the local church has so many benefits.
I love it. I love it. Thank you.
Have we got time for a last quote?
Yeah, absolutely.
Marina? Is that all right? It's another Brené Brown one.
Love Brené,
okay? Bring it on. There's always time for Brené.
Okay, so when we spend our lives waiting until we're perfect or bulletproof before we walk into the arena, we ultimately sacrifice our relationships, opportunities that may not be recoverable. We squander our precious time, and then we turn our backs on our gifts, and these are our unique contributions that only we can make.
Wow,
That's from her book Daring Greatly, which is a really, really good read, and it goes really well with this topic, I think, today, doesn't it?
Awesome. Well, in which case then, if you've got some time on your hands, I would recommend Brené Brown, Daring Greatly, to go with this episode. We hope you've had a good time. We look forward to catching you on the Mum Show again soon. Bye.
Hello parents, don't forget to say hello. We're at promisecollective.co.uk. Bye!